Hello, this is Kale. Welcome to Kale Scale. This episode, Venom. This is just the worst. Like, everything that could go wrong and that almost seems like intentionally was wronged for a Venom movie was done for this movie. A Venom movie doesn't work without Spider-Man, first off. You need Spider-Man to make a Venom movie. That's why Venom looks the way he does. That's why Venom has his own set of powers. You don't have a Venom movie without Spider-Man, and this movie proves that. Tom Hardy in this movie is just... it's interesting. First off, his accent is just the weirdest. I don't know what he thinks Americans sound like, but
apparently he thinks they sound like Adam Sandler.
Yeah, he does a good Adam Sandler impression, just not a good American impression.
Why would we do that?
There are a few notable scenes, one of which my favorite is he jumps in a lobster tank and just bites down on a lobster. There's just the only good acting that he really does in this movie is when he does the voice for the Venom symbiote. That's the only time I liked him in this movie, because that voice sounds better than his American one. The villain is pretty lame. It's just a gray Venom called Riot, because for some reason the symbiotes name themselves in this movie. The main message is homeless people, but at one point they just call them poor people. There's a scene where they're bringing all the homeless people, like they've been saying, that they've been doing testing on to put the symbiotes on, and the scientist that's trying to help Hardy calls them poor people instead. She's like, there's a bunch of poor people dying in his labs. There's his girlfriend, Anne Wang. She is pretty annoying, and her actress just seems lost from scene to scene. There's a scene where she just goes, hospital! Now! They try to play off Hardy as like he's a wimp and he needs the Venom symbiote to like unleash all that anger he has inside of him, but it looks more funny than anything. This movie doesn't know what a symbiote is because it forgets its own rules it sets up for them. They set up that a symbiote has to find the perfect host, which the evil scientist who is a doctor of some sort and can achieve space travel doesn't know what an organ transplant is, or doesn't know the basics. They're like, they need to form a perfect match. And he's like an organ transplant? And then he goes to explain what an organ transplant is. But they set up the rules that a symbiote has to go from host to host, but it can find one that's its perfect match. Except that later it does this, and after it leaves a host, that host dies. Except it goes from a dog to Tom Hardy's girlfriend in this movie, and neither of them die. Also, it has the greatest scene in cinema. A female Venom making out with Tom Hardy. Just full on, just the Venom symbiote making out, which...
it's pretty great.
It's great. Best scene
and
of the movie.
The symbiote had given her big boobs and a big butt as well.
Yep. Yes. And she was taller. This was someone's sex fantasy, to be honest.
Yes.
I guess they read zero Venom comic books because everything that would make sense to include about the symbiotes is just left out entirely. If they mention something that's common accurate, they just blatantly state it like they have to. Like, oh well, we gotta get that out of the way. Also, apparently the symbiote's only purpose to combine to a host is so they can eat their organs. Unless they eat other people's organs, then they can achieve true symbiosis, which is very stupid. Hardy has to feed the Venom symbiote organs, and then if he doesn't do that, the Venom symbiote will just eat his organs. That's the only reason they work together, which is incredibly stupid. Okay, see, back in the day, Venom would eat a brain just because the writers back then thought, oh, that's cool, that's edgy. But it wasn't that he needed to, it was just over the top and edgy. Not an actual character motivation. The climax of this movie is just like, scene, end. When I was watching this movie, I thought there was going to be a whole nother hour to the movie because it just felt like that. Like it just wrapped up so quickly and stupidly.
Because the movie only starts halfway through the movie.
Yeah, Venom doesn't show up.
Shows up.
He shows up like maybe 45 to like an hour into the movie.
The titular character Venom doesn't show up till halfway through the movie.
That's how you know you have a good movie. The after credit scene, one of them is Woody Harrelson in a really bad wig. And then the best part about this movie was the 5 minutes of Into the Spider-Verse we got. That was the only reason you should watch this movie, is to get that one 5-minute scene. Overall, this movie gets my first -10 out of 10. When there is a movie that's so bad it's good, this is what it's going to be compared to from now on. This beat out Truth or Dare.
I got that adrenaline,
If you want to see more from us, go to the Jo channel, the josephmaldonado.com. We got lots of content.
I want to see more of that, whatever that was.
This. Yes.